Welcome back into Cougar Nation, your weekly check-in where we hear from the voice of Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. I'm Mitch Harper, your BYU insider for KSL Sports. You can check out all my bylines on KSLSports.com. We'll be holding it down this Saturday, 9 a.m. Extended pregame coverage, BYU, UCF from Orlando. Number 11 Cougs going to be taking on the UCF Knights. Only the fourth ever meeting between these two programs. Third meeting in the regular season. First time BYU is going to go to the bounce house since 2014, excuse me. So it's been about 10 years. Remember that last visit to Orlando was in the year where BYU was almost undefeated. They had lost the week prior to Utah State. Taysom Hill went down with an injury. Christian Stewart stepped in and had a valiant effort, but BYU came up short in overtime to UCF this week. Obviously looking for a better performance this time around against a Knights team that's somewhat down and out at the moment. They're 3-4 on the season, currently on a 4-game losing streak. But myself and Matt Baiamonte, my co-host here on Cougar Nation, he's away tonight, but we're checking in with him now. Matt, how are you this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, Matt. And BYU is 7-0, riding high. This amazing wave of momentum for Cougar football is so high right now, and I think it's time for us over the phone here to get into what's trending with the Cougars as they continue this hot momentum.
Cougar Nation, trending. What's trending up and what's trending down this football season?
All right, Matt, what's trending up for you right now for BYU football?
Trending up for me is confidence in key situations that BYU football can get wins. What happened on Friday night, that final drive and getting the win late in the game, that doesn't happen very often. And you saw throughout the weekend, Mitch, a number of games where it didn't happen. And there was another Big 12 game in which it did. Iowa State miraculously holding on against UCF. But most of the time, you don't succeed in those situations. And for BYU to have done that offensively, that gave me some confidence. We've seen it defensively this year a couple of times, but we haven't seen it offensively. 73 seconds to go, they march down the field and get the game-winning touchdown. I feel better situationally that if you need a game-winning drive, this team has been there and they've done that. What about you?
I like that a lot. I think what's trending up for me is the play of Darius Lasser. I talked about him in the previous segment, but 6 catches, 129 yards, a touchdown. Obviously, that touchdown was massive. And then we forget the opening play of the game, a 50-yard bomb between him and Retzlaff. I just think Lassiter is playing at a pretty high level, and I think he can get better if he just cleans up those drops. That's been kind of a common occurrence for this BYU team. The last 3 games, they've had 3 or 4 drops in all 3 of these last couple games. So hopefully they clean that up, but I do love the play of Lassiter. On the flip side, Matt, what do you feel is trending down for this BYU football team?
It's the run defense, and it's a real concern this week when the Cougs go out to humid Orlando, Florida, because you saw what Central Florida did on the road in Ames. They ran all over that Cyclone defense, and I don't know on the road if you can sustain a win if the Knights run for over 300 yards like they did against Iowa State. So I was a little concerned about the run defense. Look, in Oklahoma State, they've got a great running back, Ollie Gordon. We know how legit he is, but you look across the Big 12, Mitch, there's a lot of great running backs, and UCF has a really, really talented running back as well. So run defense is not trending in the right direction. I love the yards per play numbers. I love the scoring defense, and I love the takeaways. They're one of the most opportunistic defenses in the Big 12 when it comes to takeaways. But if you can't stop the run, that's going to come back to get you at some point. So, unfortunately, I feel like that rush defense is heading in the wrong direction.
And along those same lines for me, it's got to be just tackling. I thought the tackling was pretty poor from BYU. Kalani Sitake kind of noted that, they were kind of overextending, trying a little bit too hard. It felt like, BYU was not themselves, not the BYU team that we've grown to know this season, where they're just this stout defense and they can get off the field. I just think that has got to get cleaned up here in a hurry because, you noted it. UCF has a very good ground attack with R.J. Harvey. And I think even though despite UCF losing this past weekend to Iowa State, I still believe that performance against a top 10 team gave UCF a little bit of confidence going into this BYU game that they can compete against anyone. So they're not going to be afraid against BYU, and they're almost going to be, in many respects, feels like they're going to be licking their chops that they feel like they can take this thing to a higher level.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because coming into that game, it sort of felt like with UCF players hitting the transfer portal, going on the road, that season could implode for UCF. And that was a really impressive performance, because there's moments in a season when it's not going your way. Does the team band together and figure it out and salvage the season? Look, UCF, they're not going to have the season they wanted to have. Some people thought they were going to be in the mix for a Big 12 championship game. That's out the window. They're not competing for a Big 12 championship. And so you wonder sometimes with these teams, are they just going to fold and explode? And then they go on the road and have a performance like that. The players that are still in that program, I think that was a bonding moment for them to be like, hey, you know what? Let's stick together. Let's play well. Maybe we can spoil someone else's season. That's kind of what BYU was doing last year. Whereas, like, can we give Oklahoma a loss? Can we keep Oklahoma State out of the Big 12 championship game? Those things did not happen. But a team can rally and sort of find itself. And so I'm totally with you on that. I kind of wanted them to get blown out, because then I would have felt like maybe they would just fold up shop and that would be an easy win. But now it looks like this UCF game, it's going to be a lot more difficult than we originally thought.
I also think for BYU, what's trending up, and, it's crazy to say this because when you look at the whole game, Jake wasn't great, but man, he was clutch at the end. And I feel like Jake's trending up after that game, but you look at the final stat line, 13 of 26, 2 interceptions, 218 through the air. But, I mean, he was clutch when he needed to be.
I love that, Mitch, because you look at the numbers and you would just say this is an average performance. But then you really go back and rewatch the game, and now we're starting to see some of the Pro Football Focus grades come out, where he was one of the highest graded quarterbacks in all of college football last week, and you're wondering, how does that make sense? Because these aren't great completion numbers, the yardage numbers aren't high, he had turnovers, but when you really break it down, there was only 1 or 2 really bad decisions. That interception right before the half, that was not ideal, and that could have been disastrous, but that was a Hail Mary situation. So that's not a bad decision. Maybe he should have taken the sack when there wasn't an opportunity to really get a good throw on it. But the only really poor decision I can remember in that game was when they were in scoring position and he threw it to the end zone in the northeast corner, and it got picked off, and you're saying, hey, you have at least 3 points. You can't do that. But then in the second half, he led multiple scoring drives. They scored 24 points in the second half, Mitch. And then that game-winning drive, his ability to run. And the thing that I like, too, about Jake's running ability is, yes, there are a few quarterback-designed runs. We see that. But a good chunk of his yardage is on a passing play that breaks down. He gets out of the pocket and takes off and gets some positive yards. I just think Jake, sometimes we throw this word around too much, but Jake is a gamer. And we've seen this in multiple games now. When you need something big from Jake in this offense, more times than not, he has delivered this season. And I think he's trending up. He's getting better every single week. Still, you got to clean up those mistakes. And in some respect, Mitch, maybe those mistakes are a part of who he is, because he makes a lot of chunk plays. And if you're going to have chunk plays and game-winning drives and 27-yard runs and an occasional pick, sign me up for that, because it's resulting in wins.
Well said. I think Jake Retzlaff's the last time a BYU quarterback had a touchdown game-winning drive with a minute or less was Tanner Mangum, Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall. They didn't have what Jake Retzlaff just pulled off this weekend. So we got to give credit to Jake Retzlaff for that performance. Got to give credit to you, Matt, for hopping on the line when you got busy family stuff to attend to. You'll be back in the saddle next Monday, but then you'll be with me out in Orlando on Saturday. We'll have extended pregame beginning at 9 a.m.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. I cannot wait for this one. Look, I couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk about this team because how often are they 7-0, Mitch? This just does not happen every single year where it's a special season right now, and you got to enjoy every second of it.
Well said. That's Matt Baiamonte, host of Cougar Nation. He'll be back again, like I said, next Monday here with us. I'll talk to you later, Matt.
Yeah, take care, Mitch. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, that's Matt Baiamonte, and this show is sponsored by Central Bank, serving Utah County for over 133 years with trusted service, modern technology, and personalized care. Central Bank. Go to centralbank.com. We'll take a break, and Cougar Nation will take more of your phone calls, 801-575-8255. Do you feel more confident this team can win the Big 12 after that win over Oklahoma State? Let's hear from you next, 801-575-8255, right here on Cougar Nation.